left, right.
This episode, we are talking about inflation and the gig economy. The true cost of inflation is really quite stunning. You think about things like gasoline. Gasoline, obviously, super high right now as we're recording this podcast, but that's a recent increase. Gas really hasn't followed the trend of inflation. When you look at the cost of gas and compare that to the cost of cars or the cost of housing, then you put the wages line right alongside of that, and these lines don't trend upward at the same level. Think about the cost of milk 10 years ago, think about the cost of milk today is not as stunning of an increase as is the cost of real estate. So some interesting topics we talk about, and as mentioned, the gig economy we do touch on, as it looks like nearly 50% of the most recent generation is working in the gig economy and not working in a traditional career-minded salaried job. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Of course it's good.
Cheers.
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 All right, we are live. Welcome to SipTalk, episode 174. My name is Justin DiGiulio out of my basement in New Jersey, joined by Adam Sindeman. Adam Sindeman, political commentator. Adam is a man of morals, questionable man of morals, but not a man of questionable morals.
Adam, depends on how many drinks I've had.
Well, I hope you have a drink with you right now. I'm glad to have you. Rejoining us. This is not your first episode of SipTalk. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about inflation, a topic that you have come to the table, or should I say bar? So you sitting at your living room bar. So you've come to the bar to discuss inflation. I'm curious your perspective, but right off the bat, I'm curious what you're drinking.
I'm actually drinking some Buffalo Trace, some of the finest scotch out there and finest whiskey for America. I think it was actually made before America was founded. And I thank Joe Rogan for turning me onto this stuff. I can't stop drinking enough of it. And I got some engraved glassware for Christmas from some very nice relatives, and why not? So toast to you, man.
Cheers. We're going to thank Rosh Galeb, who's joining us in the background, sharing your comments with us in real time. Hi, Tori. Glad you could join us. I got a glass of Doucet in a bullet bourbon mug here. So.
Oh, all right. I'm about the bullet bourbon. That's some good stuff.
Yeah. So last episode we talked about the new, what they're calling anti-gay legislation in Florida. I don't want to get too deep into the Ukraine talk because we've done like 4 episodes on Ukraine, but I do like a bit of the political commentary. I actually wish we had you on board the last couple of episodes when we talked about Ukraine and where we talked about the Florida legislature, because I know that you are you're more on the left, you're more left leaning, but decreasingly, which is.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate statement?
I think that's totally accurate, yeah.
So let me ask you this. Why would you say that you are left-leaning but decreasingly? And because I remember during the Trump administration, you got some more right-wing family members, and there was a lot of internal family strife. But I feel like now more so than ever, you can understand some of their perspective on this. So tell me what's going on in your brain.
Man, that's an overloaded question. I don't know. I feel like I've always learned in my life that too much of anything is no good. And
so the majority of your life you've been liberal. So now you've hit the too much point, and you just change it.
A little bit. Like I feel like maybe the party is kind of moving away from what I grew into, and it's kind of catering to a different generation, to so to speak. I know that sounds nuts because I'm only 31 years old, but I'm not that young as I used to be anymore, and I don't think that the Democratic Party caters as much to an older class people as per se maybe the younger generations. But I think that the Democratic Party has just gone too far in a lot of their agenda, and like there's just no red line in the sand for anybody of like what is too far. And I feel like we're paying attention more and more about like you can't say anything wrong, your whole life is over, and we're going to dig through your whole life and ruin you if you said anything that could be considered somewhat out of line to some individual out of 8 billion people in the world. And I find that to be like not what we need to be focusing on. And not to say that the Republicans or conservatives have some ideas that could really help our country go in the right direction. I don't think they have any ideas. I just think that they're just not Democrats, which will probably be why they win the election in the fall by a landslide. But I will say, though, that Democrats seem to want to pick a lot of social justice warrior mentality fights, and I don't know if that's necessarily what we need when we have the highest inflation in 60 years and $8-9 a pump at the gas for a gallon. I don't think that we're like.
I haven't seen $8 or $9 a gallon. I've seen over $5, not personally, but in some videos. And some
well, you live in Jersey, so
Yeah, but the Jersey prices always have been substantially lower than New York State.
That's my point.
And for the last few years, they have not been. I mean, they've been lower than my Manhattan gas station near my old apartment, which was $4.99 for the last 8 years.
Sure, but I mean, I have the same thing around the corner from me, but I think though that, and I've seen the prices of this in LA, I've seen it in Chicago, I've seen it in Michigan, I've seen all across social media, as many of us do every day. I've seen this gouging of gas. And I've also talked to a lot of homeowners out there who have told me that their gas bill has quadrupled or tripled or doubled in 1 month.
Well, look, a couple things. One, I want to say hi to Debbie Fair here. Hi to Shah of all trades. Also saying hi to you, Shah of all trades. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so you're just getting some shout outs. I thought I'd let you know. But
hey, everybody.
The gas prices for fuel delivery, not natural gas, but actual oil delivery for people's home furnaces, that is one that I think is catching a lot of people way off guard. Because if you've got a 500-gallon fuel tank and you're paying an extra $1 a gallon or so, which is actually, I would say, pretty average, that's an extra $500. And a monthly basis maybe you're paying, which is a lot of money. I'm locked in on a monthly set plan, but my fuel rate, right, I think is I pay $530 a month every month of the year for fuel.
That's wild.
But I don't get fuel delivery in July, but I still got to pay $530 July, $530 in August, $530 in September. But I've been paying this thinking, damn, I must really be overpaying. And I was gonna say, hey, you guys have got me at the wrong rate, my consumption, da da da. But now it's too late because now they're gonna say, you're actually saving money, pal.
Most likely.
I'm gonna say, shit, I missed my window of opportunity there. But look, I want to touch on the inflation thing. There's a lot of other stuff you're talking about and I goaded you into it when I started talking about left-leaning and right-leaning. And, I get the cancel culture reference that you're not a fan of cancel culture. James, our regular guest host, is actually a fan of cancel culture, and he feels that it is delivered when due, I suppose.
Sure, but I mean, canceling certain people because they say one thing out of context, I don't really think is what I would.
But look, I have a weird relationship with cancel culture also because I just watched a movie with Kevin Spacey over the weekend, and I was like, man, he's a bad dude, but he was a good actor.
Fuck yeah, he was great.
So,
and I don't give anybody says Despite the guy being what some would consider a pedophile, the guy was a fucking incredible actor. I mean, watch House of Cards for one season.
But go back to. So let's make a differentiation here.
All right.
Bill Cosby, and then you have Kevin Spacey. So I don't think that Bill Cosby was canceled. Actually, I think a lot of people look back at Bill Cosby work and say, "Man, he had some good stuff." However, he's done some really, really way worse than Kevin Spacey. He's done some really bad stuff, and now the guy's in jail. We don't like what he did. Now he's in jail. Whereas the Kevin Spacey thing was, we don't like what he did. We're going to make him go away. Right. Whereas the Harvey Weinstein thing, we don't like what he did. We're putting him in jail. So there's kind of different levels here. I think the league, taking care of something and then being able to respect someone's body of work seems perfectly reasonable to me. And again, Bill Cosby, atrocious, terrible acts, a guy with a serious dark side, and should be locked away and never see the light of day again for the rest of his life. He doesn't have a great quality of life left anyway, so it's not like we're punishing him through his 30s and 40s. We're punishing through his worst years anyways. But he had some good TV and some good comedy, and it's really unfortunate. But my thinking is you have to be able to differentiate the two things and say that was a funny joke. It was a funny joke. The guy also is a scumbag and he's in jail.
Well, he's not in jail anymore. But no, you're right. Look, I think you have to sometimes. It's okay for me to say, yes, you are a piece of shit. Like, listen, think of Tom Cruise. I think Tom Cruise is actually probably a legitimate crazy person. All right. Like, I actually think he's completely off his fucking rock. I think a lot of what he says about his personal life is fucking bullshit. And I think he hides his real life. However, the guy fucking makes the best fucking movies every time he's in a movie. And I am going to sit in that theater. I'm going to watch it every fucking time.
I agree with you.
Being said, as a personal thing, I think the guy is a total whack job. And I don't care who hears that. He's crazy. But same thing for Kevin Spacey. I loved watching House of Cards. I would be sitting on the edge of my seat watching all those seasons because I thought it was an incredible show. Is he still a scumbag? Absolutely. Is he a piece of shit? Yes. And could I possibly even confirm some of the shit that's alleged according to what's out there in the media? Yeah, I could. However, I still will compliment the guy as an actor. And, that's still a job well done, despite I understand it did hurt people and that, we have every right to punish that person and cancel him for what he did. But we don't have to now just say, all of his work for his entire career, including the Oscars, now he doesn't deserve, to have any recognition for the rest of his life. I don't think that that's quite fair because now if we're judging on a scale like that, I could just fucking sit here and be like, okay, you know that one thing, Justin, you said when you were 6 years old, it was really rude. You know what? We're going to cancel you. We're going to fire you. We're going to destroy your life, take away your home, your car, your life, your girlfriend, everything you've ever had. We're going to take it away because that one thing you said at 6 years old. Because I don't know where the line is drawn in these realities.
Six is a bit of a stretch.
But my point of making it so crazy is, what is the red line? We could be talking about Ukraine and Russia, but I don't want to get into that. But there's the red line there. I mean, you have Russian, people saying that they want to cross that red line. But in actuality, I don't know how, where it stops. Now it seems to stop now with these trans individuals who want to join women's athletic teams. Maybe that's where the line is drawn. Maybe just that's it. Right? Or cancel culture draws a line on something we said 25 years ago, like Joe Rogan. But I don't know.
We digress quite a bit. We need to get back on track when it comes to inflation. And then when we run out of topic when it comes to inflation, we can segue back into we can segue back into all this stuff.
I told you this Buffalo Trace is good, man.
I want to get back into what's happening with interest rates and what's happening with inflation. So let's define inflation right off the bat. Mm-hmm. I got three causes for inflation, And number one is what's called cost push inflation, meaning the cost of products and goods and services go up because the cost to produce them, or the cost of the raw goods, or the cost of the wages increase. So if you want to buy a hamburger for $10 this year, and the next year the minimum wage prices have gone up and the cost of ground beef has gone up, that hamburger is now going to cost $15. That's cost push inflation. There's another type of inflation called demand inflation. So this hamburger shop selling $10 hamburgers has a sudden increase in demand. So now, rather than having half of their tables empty at lunchtime, they have all of their tables full, and they got a line out the door. Now, instead of charging $10, they might start charging $12 or $15 or $20 because the demand is there, and they can't even fully supply all the demand. It's going out the door. So they're going to increase their prices because people are willing to pay that. That's type 2, demand-driven inflation. And then type 3 is the government printing and distributing more money, which might even be caused by the government being willing to loan more money because they printed more of it at a reduced rate of interest.
Okay, so
right now what we have going on is we have high demand, right?
You could say that again.
I said, yeah. I mean, the demand is definitely high. We look in the real estate market where both you and I work in Manhattan, one of the most expensive real estate. One of the city with the most expensive real estate, not just in the U.S. but in the world, and we have a huge demand with soaring prices, and the prices have gone up because of the increase in demand, especially relative to the amount of supply. So, what did you have on your mind when it comes to inflation? Because I know you wanted to get into this with the interest rates.
Yeah. So, back in the 70s, we had a real crisis with inflation. We're currently on track to surpass some of the highest inflation we've had in the century, or in the past century, or within the past 100 years, however you want to phrase it.
Well, I like to think of a century as 100 years also.
Yeah, well, we're in a different century than we were before, but you get my point. So in the past 100 years, we're about to have the highest inflation we've ever experienced. And we also had issues with supply chain when it came to gas shortages that happened in the 70s, and buying power decreased quite a bit back then. And I feel like we're starting to slowly repeat a lot of what happened. And if you look back in history, especially in 1981, when Reagan first came into office, first thing the regulators and the Fed had him do was pull the brakes on the economy hard. Have you ever driven a car and you pull that e-brake on the car real hard? The car is just basically going to stop short, and you don't go through the windshield if you don't have a seatbelt on.
Well, new cars don't have emergency handbrake. It's a button now. So.
Well, I like to buy vintage cars, so I don't really know, but nonetheless, it's when that happens to the economy, it's to cool off the economy, because right now we've had such high demand for so much supply. And we also have lack of jobs on top of that, where people who rather don't want to go to work, this laziness mentality, which is probably the most ultimate America thing we could possibly have going on, where they're just like, nah, I don't feel like working. That's just the most American thing I've ever heard.
I have some comments on that. We're going to talk about the gig economy in a little bit, but let's get back to the prices.
Yeah, and I think that, speaking real estate for starters, I think that you're going to see mortgage companies really go in hard on trying to increase faster than the Fed on rates. So you're going to see mortgage rates closer to 10%, I'd say, before the end of the year.
Well, the same, we're expected to have 6 upcoming interest rate hikes.
Correct.
For this year. The next one, the most recent one, was when? Like last week?
Yeah, it literally was less than a week ago.
And then they're saying the next one is going to be in May. Now, we don't know what they're going to look like. We don't know what percentage it's going to tick up, but my guess is at least 0.5% minimum.
They say, I don't know, actually. The last I heard initially at the beginning of the year was about 0.25, and now they raised it up 0.25 last week. However, now they're saying it could potentially be even more. They need to be even more aggressive, that's why it's going
to be at least 0.5 percentage point. But here's what happens.
Yeah.
People are spending a lot of money, right? The we got right now we have high demand. We have a strong job market. We have this kind of pandemic mania, which is making people spend and act weird. And then we also have what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. So people just aren't quite thinking super straight and super long term. But you're killing me with your video feed here. What happened?
Sorry. Work
need
emergency. Hang on.
work emergency.
Yes, I have a lease signing in Australia right now, not Austria.
Not Austria. Actually, that was an issue we had today.
Yeah, that's a legitimate thing, by the way. I apologize.
We were looking at the, not we, actually, I wasn't even part of this, but you were looking at the time difference between the U.S. and Austria and not the U.S. and Australia, which is not good. So look, we got a lot of stuff, the high demand, strong job market, pandemic mania, Russia and Ukraine, just things that are causing people to kind of act not normal. And then we have this shorter term massive spending increase. A lot of people have been receiving unemployment. A lot of people haven't been paying rent, so they've had extra money that they can use that they wouldn't normally be spending if they were living on a tight budget. We have people that are receiving the pandemic, what are they called? Federal bonuses, right? So
the stimulus checks?
Yeah, stimulus, that was the word I was looking for. People are receiving the stimulus checks. So what's happened is there's been a lot of spending. And because there's been increased spending, obviously that means higher demand. But because the spending has gone up at a rate that we weren't prepared for, we've had supply chain issues. You couple and the supply chain issues are caused by the increase in demand,
right?
But also by the increase in the decrease in the ability to manufacture and make things. Whereas in China, if you're locked down, you're not going to be able to go to work in the factory and stand, 14 inches next to the person alongside you and make whatever it is that you're making.
Right.
And that, so we've had this increase in spending, decrease in supply. So that's a double whammy when it comes to inflation. Increase in spending means more demand, and then lower supply means increased prices. So you have that going on, and the U.S. is trying to get a hang on what's happening and slow it down a little bit, because now prices for things are becoming exorbitant and they're going through the roof. So what can the Fed do to slow down spending? Well, they can introduce higher interest rates, which basically kind of bottlenecks the money coming from the banks. And that starts with mortgage loans. So fewer people buying houses. And if anybody has moved in the last 2 years, the demand for housing is very high. So houses are expensive and interest rates have been pretty low. I know people that are getting interest rates under 3% or had gotten interest rates under 3%. And it also, because the banks are loaning money at a higher rate, that affects car loans.
Yeah.
Right. And it also is going to affect credit cards, which if your credit card rates are going up or people opening new credit cards, those rates are going up. People are going to spend less on credit cards. I actually have a gazillion credit cards. I'm really bad with spending money, and I have no idea what any of the interest rates are. So.
Most credit cards usually average between like 18, 17 up to like 25, 27%, depending on the card.
I try to pay off the balances every month, and
it's a smart move.
And then I don't have to worry about it. But every once in a while they can creep up a little bit. And I remember back when we were building the company, owing 6 figures plus on credit cards and having payments on every card and I had 12, 16 different credit cards, and every card was like I had to pay minimum payment was like $1,000 to $2,500 a month. So at that point in time, I really got like, oh fuck, I can't just let this money revolve on credit cards. I'm paying an insane amount of interest. But I still don't know what the interest was. I was just like, oh, I better fucking pay these things off. So,
well, I can say though, look, I think that's kind of a scary statement that you just made, though. I don't know how much people really kind of felt that gravity of that conversation, because if we're going to now feel the pinch on the consumer's end now for interest rates with car loans, buying a home, or opening up a new credit card and using credit line to buy products when there's no more stimulus checks, there is no more government handouts. That's gone. All right. And on top of that, you have rising goods because of supply chain issues.
But a lot of people have gotten in the habit of spending over the last 2 years.
And not working, by the way.
But people have gotten in this habit of spending with this excess money. It's very difficult to get out of a habit of spending because that affects your immediate lifestyle, right? It affects your, for us in New York City, you take a cab every day, right? And that adds up,
Right.
There's been times I've taken cabs as my primary mode of transportation, and it's $15 to $20 one direction, and I live pretty close to the office. But if I had some extra, an extra grand or so a month, because of stimulus or because of unemployment or because I wasn't paying rent, and got used to taking cabs, and then all of a sudden realized, fuck, I've been putting these cabs on a credit card for a few months. I got to slow the spending. And then you got to start taking the subway again. And you go down deep in the subway, and you got these people who are on drugs and all this crazy shit going on. You just feel, I don't know. It's difficult to go backwards when it comes to spending, and I think that's why we have a bit of a crisis right now.
It is and it isn't. Okay. So like I spend money like water. I'm terrible with finances. I do try to save. I love and thank my girlfriend every day for teaching me how to actually like properly save money, because I don't think I would be in a position I'm in without her on that end. That being said, you can cut back on certain expenses, of course. But you are right to a degree. Like once you build yourself up in a certain lifestyle, it is hard to start cutting things off. And like I've been evaluating a lot. Listen, I'll be totally honest. Real estate market has been really tough over the past quite a few months in New York City. There's just no inventory, so it's tough, for us to, find great options for people. And, when you're trying to figure out like what you can cut expenses on, it becomes really tough.
And I think that's kind of the point where we're running into this everyman's spending. You and I aren't multi-millionaires. We don't have an unending supply of cash, and also neither one of us works a 9-to-5 regular salary job. So
no.
We are very much, affected by these fast swings, and it's tough. And we live. I know my lifestyle. I know your lifestyle. We live pretty relaxed and pretty, living in New York City. And this is one thing it took me a little while to learn in New York City, especially because I was very broke when I moved to New York City, is that there's so much more money in New York City. But people make way more money in New York City than anywhere else, basically in the U.S. on average.
I agree.
But you also spend so much more money. You want to get lunch outside our office, unless you want to get like half of a sandwich and a can of Diet Coke, you're spending $15, right? Like if you want to get just a sandwich, a bag of chips, and a Diet Coke, you're probably looking at $16 to $17.
Oh, easy. I mean, it's funny to me how I've realized now that I can't walk outside without spending money.
But you can walk 2 blocks or 4 blocks, but if you get on a subway, that's costing you money, and
that's $3 basically. I mean, who counts the 25 cents these days? That's $3 each way. Then on top of that, you want to buy some food, you want to buy a cup of coffee, unless you're buying, making it in your office if you have the availability to do that, like myself. But otherwise, you're spending 30, 40, 50, 60 bucks a day just to basically function while you're at your office.
Do you buy coffee out?
Never.
I know you make it in the office, and I think maybe once in 2022 I poured myself a mug of your coffee, but I got to start taking it. So I make coffee at home. I drink it on my way in. and then I get off the train in the city and I stop at Starbucks and get another cup of coffee. So it's a lose-lose for me in that case. But
it's really expensive. I don't know why you do that. I mean, I make a pot of coffee every single day next to me at my office because I know it costs that container, by the way, of Folgers that I bought. I know we're going a little off topic, but just to be economical for anyone to hear me on this, I went into CVS. It cost me $5 for this massive container of coffee. I don't give a shit if it's Folgers or Maxwell House. Like, what the fuck do I care? It's fucking coffee to keep me awake.
Well, I mean, back in the day when I just needed caffeine, I used to buy the boxes of the Lipton's tea, and then I would brew. I put boiling water over like 4 bags of tea, and just and it tasted. It tasted so bitter and so disgusting, but I would just drink it for the sheer caffeine.
Yeah, that sounds a bit too rough for my taste, but yeah, I think that's a bit too rough for me. But yeah, like, why not be economical in that sense? Like $3, like, I was listening to Gary Vee talk on a podcast today, and he was talking about how the level of convenience in New York City is so crippling that people will wind up living their lives day to day struggling about money, but yet will pay Grubhub $4 for a convenience fee for a $3 cup of coffee.
Look, I'm a big Gary Vee fan, but and I'm also I'm very attuned with being in New York, and
that's crazy, man. Come on,
we deal with people's financial statements all the time. You know this. Mm-hmm. We have tax returns, bank statements. It's our job. It's our fiduciary duty to the clients. We're not going to name any names or share any specific details, but I can tell you the number of people that have very little. A very low dollar number in their bank account, and they spend money on such bullshit. It's always Uber. There's always Uber or Lyft on people's bank statements. When somebody's balance is like $19, and I look through like 4 pages of I usually look through their statements to make sure. So in New York City, when you're applying for an apartment, you have to have your tax returns. You have to have an employment letter. You have to have pay stubs,
bank statements.
But the landlords, because there's so much fraud in the city, the landlords will look at the bank statements and they'll look at the pay stubs and they'll say, "Hey, do we see this amount coming through on February 21st?" It says they got the check is dated, it's a direct deposit. But I look through and it's always the people that have the $19 in their account, checking account, and usually there's not a substantial savings.
And
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm agreeing with you and sharing from personal experience. And they have Grubhub, Seamless, Uber, Lyft, Just Salad, where they're getting a salad for $16. And
or if they had chicken, it's like $35 at this point.
And it is a tough city to keep up in with such a huge amount of pressure on you to consume, to be a consumer. And I think,
but convenience, Justin, you have to, if you can't talk about consumerism in New York City without talking about convenience.
Well, but it's very good marketing. Why wouldn't you order out?
Great.
Why wouldn't you order out tonight? It's easier. You don't want to go to a restaurant and spend all that money on drinks or whatever, but you're not comparing ordering out to restaurant, right? Like,
no. Why would I? I would love to.
No, what I'm saying, when you present the idea, order in tonight. You don't want to go to a restaurant. Well, then ordering in sounds cheaper and it sounds like you're going to save money. But it's not ordering in versus a restaurant. It's ordering in versus eating, $2.40 worth of food at home. That's
okay. That's a fair argument. And I am okay. So full admission.
Can we transition into the income specifics that you're a bit frustrated with right now?
Okay, that was a very smooth transition there, Jay. That was.
I like to just interrupt you. I like to interrupt you from speaking. Okay, I can mute you if I have the controls on my end. I could mute you.
Wait, what's your question, though?
I like to just announce that we're transitioning, and it's about as smooth as it gets, right?
Yeah. Okay. It was clunky, but smooth. It was very smooth.
So, your words. You wanted to talk about the gig economy and how
I did.
people in the more recent generations have been uh, fucked hardcore. You were really mad about this afternoon.
I am.
You're really mad, saying, "Oh, now it's a gig economy and everybody's being fucked so hard." So I'm curious. I'd like you to expand on where your thoughts were. So obviously, but to back up and then to actually have a smooth transition. Prices are high, demand is high, income is not increasing, and now we have people that aren't working your traditional 40-hour work weeks, 9 to 5, health insurance, retirement plans, 401k, pensions. Those are things that passed. Now it's gig economy, which is Uber and Adam, take it from there.
Yeah. So gig economy, right? This is something that's kind of a new term over the past decade, especially for millennials. In the 2008 financial crash, everybody that was coming out of college at that rate was pretty much fucked. There was no opportunity for jobs. They were all kind of screwed. And like something that's been on my mind is like we built up, I would say, the millennial generation, which now I think is probably the main consuming factor of our economy now. Like we are the biggest majority in the day-to-day activity of our economy.
Are you saying millennials outnumber
Out almost any other generation. Baby
when it
boomers
comes
are
to
dying
consuming?
off at this rate. They're
When it
not.
comes to consuming,
Yeah, most of them are not in the workforce anymore. So you have, what is it, Gen Xer, and then you have millennials as of right now. So when I evaluate that, over the past 10 years, we've built up a tremendous factor into gig economy, which is freelance work, self-employed, developing their own business plans. So there's no salary jobs in a majority of the
well,
state
give me
economy.
some examples of some gig workers. Uber was one that I mentioned.
Uber is one, yes. Dog walking. In New York City, dog walking is a massive, massive business. All right. So I would also say, think about, I'm trying to think of another gig now. Real estate. Being a real estate agent is considered, I would say, freelance, self-employed work.
Okay.
Maybe we could also consider something along the lines of carpentry business, construction. You could do freelance work like that. No? Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
that counts. That
Sort
counts.
of.
Now you
Little
have,
cleanup, little broom and sweep.
but now you have companies like what's the Fiverr and what's the other one that I do? Where TaskRabbit.
TaskRabbit. Oh, great find on that, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
a gig
actually smart.
economy.
So yeah, like so a couple examples, obviously, of freelance work. And being self-employed is a lot of work. You're working 24/7. You're working for yourself. Maybe there's no boss that you have per se, but you have to keep charge of yourself day to day, every single day, plugging along to make sure that business is operating. However, when the economy, gets into a position where cost of goods gets too expensive, so now you're eating it on one end. Like let's use Uber as my example for the gig economy for a minute.
Well,
So
yeah.
I'm an Uber driver in New York City. I'm now getting eaten on the fuel cost, which Uber actually had to announce last week alone that they're now going to add a tax for fuel because the fuel prices are so high. I don't know if you caught that email or not.
I did.
However, you now also have the fact that their margins are pretty small. They have to work 14 hours, and then they're told from the application they have to go to sleep so they can get some rest.
So they're
And
not.
then,
They don't have to work 14 hours. They're limited at 14 hours.
okay, that's fair. Fair correction. And then on top of that, they're in a very competitive market in New York City. However, when, as you put it before, when people don't have the spending power that they've been accustomed to for the last 2 years, and they're getting eaten on the fuel charges, and inflation continues to rise, what's now going to happen to people like that in the gig economy? And when that accounts for nearly half of the entire economy we've rebuilt since 2008, what, in my mind or yours, is going to be the next wave in the economy that's going to help regrow from out of this? Because I'll be honest with you, I know that we're all trying to talk about like the new normal and like we're all going back to the way things were, but the economy does not feel what it was in 2019 or 2018. the economy to me feels like we're in this like weird, like not wanting to face reality / like we're
Well, I
like
feel like
in a
it's a lot
recession.
of not wanting to face reality, and maybe that will fuel the virtual reality.
The metaverse conversation, please don't get me started on that. You can fucking buy
But,
land in the metaverse.
but the gig economy is composed of people who want short-term jobs that they can work on their own schedule, and that require a limited amount of commitment. And
Right.
now, short-term jobs, I think it's only expected that these are the type of jobs that are going to be most affected as the wind blows. As the winds of change blow, these light jobs that you're working, your part-time pickup jobs that you're working outside of the 9 to 5, if you have a 9 to 5, or you're working during the day because you don't have a 9 to 5. These are the jobs that are going to float away. Now, your, your 9 to 5 salary jobs are going to last longer. Now, yeah, sure, people get laid off and those jobs are still affected by the economy. But
Mhm.
it's no surprise to me that the gig workers are the first ones to be affected by the winds of economic.
They placate to the consumer. No, but come on, Justin. No, that's not right because they placate to that consumerism of convenience, especially in major cities.
Exactly, and so, but that's my point. These are easy jobs to get. These are easy jobs to get. Don't require a lot of skill. You can get. You could. If I was to get. If I. I don't know if I'd start driving Uber, but not that that's a bad gig, but it's something that you can do very quickly. But if my job was to be eliminated, I could the very next day pick up another job and start that job, right? And it
Yeah,
would
you
be,
could
it would be a
potentially.
good economy. But my thinking is that people that make their sole source of income the gig economy are going to be the first ones that suffer when the winds of change come around. And
But
the
that's a big sector of the economy. That's not. But
You're right, and this is where I'm going with this. You said a lot of these millennials and Gen X's and the following Gen Zers are working in this gig economy. So I think that very much mirrors our culture now as it is. Think about it. You get these pickup jobs. You can work when you want. It's not very tough. It's you and I have had the same job basically for the majority of the last decade. There's not many people that stick things out through thick and through thin. Okay, now when it's thick, it's great, but when it's thin, it gets very scary and very frustrating. But the first people to drop out of that business, and you and I know some people that have dropped out of this, they're not going to win when the windfall comes and it's thick again. They're going
sure.
to go to their gig job, which if that job gets eliminated by the wispy winds of change, then they're out of that job. And we're in a society right now where people don't want to tolerate. They're not patient. They don't want to tolerate any discomfort. Think about the body type of the average
Well,
American.
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Hold on, no, hang on, hang on, hang on. What I'm
You
saying is,
can't. You can't talk about patience, though. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but you can't talk about patience when we live in a society that's all based on convenience.
but that's
That
my
that
point.
eliminates the
What I'm saying.
ability for a human being to have patience.
Okay, but you don't have to. The people that are all about convenience, which we just discussed. When I look at somebody's bank statements and they have 6 figures plus in a checking account, which is
Right.
not great usage of money, but let's say they have 40 or 19 grand in a checking account and they have 6 figures to 7 figures in a savings or investment account, those people aren't spending the same amount on Uber and Grubhub as the people that are worried about the convenience that are spending 2/3 of their income on Uber and Grubhub. You follow me?
Yes, I do. And
Okay.
I
What I'm saying is that the people that are working, there's not many people that are fully committed to working these jobs through the thick and the thin. A lot of people are quick to leave their jobs. And what happens is, and this is where I went into obesity, is that people don't want to suffer pain in the short term. So if you don't want to suffer the pain of being hungry in the short term, in the long term, you're going to have to suffer the greater pain of being obese. So if you don't want to suffer staying at a job because you don't like your boss's attitude, or you don't want to suffer staying at a job because you're not crazy about the hours, or because you don't feel like you're making change in the world.
Well, if you're fucking miserable, then fucking quit the job and
But
fucking
my
move
point
on.
is, the
It's
person that leaves that job because they can't be tolerant in the workplace, and then they go and they get a job that can be affected by the wispy winds of change, okay?
okay.
And then they get upset that their wispy job, this is the job that they could get on, on the drop of a hat, and then that job goes away. Well, what did you think was going to happen?
Fair, but let me ask you a question that I don't think that maybe you've done enough thinking about. Maybe you have. I'm actually kind of curious, and I'm sure everyone else listening in is too. But what then? What the fuck does the future look like over the next couple of years? Which I actually think the economy will hit a recession when everybody decides to face that reality.
Well, okay, so
I think you can agree with that. I'm sorry. I think everybody's in a fucking delusional mindset
I think we're in a recession, and I think there's a very high probability that it could get a lot worse. Adam invited you guys to share your opinion. If you want, there's a link in my Instagram profile. If you're watching this live, you can click that link and you can share your opinion on what you think is going to happen to the economy and whether or not Adam has finished his decanter of whiskey.
Buffalo Trace, man. The best to drink.
So what do I see happening in the near future and the long-term future? I watched a lot of dystopian movies as a kid. So I think there's a...
Go ahead. Yeah, me too.
A lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, a lot of the Sylvester Stallone, Demolition Man type movies. And I think...
Amazon's going to take over and Jeff Bezos is going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger with his steroids?
Dude, I saw a commercial. I was watching some YouTube videos about inflation before we jumped on air, and it started off like very natural with flowing trees, and then it kind of zoomed out to the Earth, and then the Earth was projected on the side of a giant building, and then the camera panned around the building, and then you're in the parking lot on the side of it, and then it was a Walmart.
Oh, of course.
And the commercial was about how Walmart is changing the world, relying on only renewable energy, and Walmart is a sustainable company. And I'm thinking, like, but you're destroying local economies. Like, this is you've destroyed so many local, like Main Street economies where you got
100%.
Where you got the butcher, you got the hardware store, you got the locksmith or whatever, you get the post office. And you got the pharmacy, and now you walk down the Main Street, and there's nothing there in these towns. But within a 25-mile radius, you've got a gigantic Walmart.
You okay?
No, I know you were completely distracted because you.
I was not, by the way.
You're sending text.
This dystopian. No. So I have to be honest. This dystopian mentality that you have. I mean, I think I definitely watch a lot of movies. I love movies. I mean, the past 2 years, I think I've watched every movie that's possibly on fucking Hulu and Netflix and HBO Go. But I would say the future of our economy, to me, you talked about Walmart. Well, let's talk about Walmart. Let's talk about Amazon. Let's talk about Apple and Facebook and these huge motherfucking companies that ultimately I think are sort of where we're headed. And I think the next economy is to kind of group a lot of these people who wanted to be sort of independent gigs are going to get slowly consumed by. I really do feel that way. I do think that, some of these companies are getting so large that it's just over consuming.
I think we're very far removed from antitrust and monopoly laws right now. I think if you could, when did these antitrust and monopoly laws come out? Early 1900s, right? Something like that.
Something like that, like the 1920s. I got a 1910s, maybe.
I'm thinking like 20s, 30s, or 40s. But if you,
I'd need to research that. We need a Jamie here. I'm not sure. Raj?
if we had those companies, if you could explain to someone in the antitrust era what the massive behemoth companies look like now, and they'd say, well, we need some real laws about this. Well, I think that they would have thought the laws that they passed back then would have compensated for what's happening now, and yet it has not.
Well, yeah, okay, but so let me ask you a question, and this is a really fair question. And I think maybe we talked about this one night when we went to a bar. By the way, Monopoly was first marketed on a broad scale by Parker Brothers in 1935. So you were pretty accurate, Justin.
When were the antitrust and monopoly laws? When did they?
All right, just so everybody knows at home, Rosh is our guru here on the internet. So he's going to find out for us. We'll come back to that. But going back to your question before, Justin, I mean, I'm not. I don't know. You don't feel though that like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and the companies that they've built, you don't think that they're going to wind up having some like kind of like an overlord on the rest of government? I mean, I could see Jeff Bezos built this 427-foot yacht in some European country and in a town that completely depends on this yacht manufacturer, by the way, which nobody talks about, and rebuilding a bridge after moving the boat through this canal that it has to go through in order for it to have the boat. And I could totally see, an Elon Musk coming into New York City, for instance, because I drive a motorcycle and I was in an accident a few months ago. Infrastructure is a piece of shit here. And the roads are terrible, and I could totally see Elon.
Hold on.
Hang on.
You got Bezos. You got Bezos builds a yacht, and then you have Elon Musk coming into New York City.
Wait, let's skip the Elon thing. Let's go back to Jeff Bezos only. So wait, you have a Jeff Bezos who, is going to replace a bridge, right, and rebuild it, which is a wonderful thing for the town. But that being said, what if a Jeff Bezos comes in and says, okay, I'll fix up the 59th Street Bridge in New York City for what the cost would be. So let's say the cost is, $20 million to fix that bridge and have it look great. But the New York City budget here is so inflated that it costs $2 billion because everybody has to have their hand in the pie. So I could totally see something like that being a revolutionary way of going forward in our economy after we get out of what feels like and is a recession, where you're having more and more of these billionaires come in, and instead of them riding to space, which, listen, I have no issue with, but maybe they become more involved in government and actually fixing government, because I think that too many people in this world are waiting for government to fix itself.
Okay, so
can't do that.
You make a good point. So let me back up just a little bit.
Okay.
It sounds to me like you're saying Elon Musk is down in Texas, and he's thinking about taking a private jet he's not even thinking about it. He's just going to New York, and he's obviously taking a private jet. And then it occurs to him one day, I'm getting a lot of flack on Twitter because I ride around in a private jet. So what if I just build a high-speed rail across the United States for a reasonable cost, for a couple $1 billion, and I do it myself rather than it happening for 40 times the cost and it being publicly funded. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I am.
Right? We're fixing the bridge because a billionaire wants it fixed, and he's just going to do it, and he's not going to have to worry about the public funding and the public being involved. He's just going to do it.
Right.
Getting at?
Yes.
So, well, I think what we see happening, and Raj is pushing us to come up with a conclusion here, and he also shared that the Sherman Antitrust Act was 1890, and Sherman Antitrust Act was the one that I was looking for in my brain. So 1890, I didn't realize it was that early.
That is early, actually. I didn't know that either.
he's pushing us to conclude here.
I see that. Yep.
And I think what we're getting at is that there are some. So we look at the economy as a cycle, right? And
Yes.
we look at history to predict the future. And I've always thought that was a really, ever since I was a little kid in school, they're like, oh, history repeats itself. And I'm thinking, like, well, no, it doesn't actually. Like, now we have TV and, like, it's computers and shit. Like, history is not going to repeat itself. Like, in the very broad strokes, maybe it will. For the most part, history is going to look a lot different when it's written in a history book 30 years from now. All right. So the next 30 years is going to look very different than the previous 60 years in a history book 30 years from now. So I think what I'm getting at, and sorry, that was I'm out there a little bit, is that the future is going to look way different than we may be able to predict it, because there are so many factors, especially in the financial market, that are so new to us. We're talking about Amazon, we're talking about Walmart, we're talking about gig economy. Something like TaskRabbit. For anybody who doesn't know what TaskRabbit is, if you want a picture hung in your house, or you want a roof put on your house, or you want
a TV hung on your apartment,
TV hung in your apartment, or you want a plumbing problem fixed, there's a bunch of people with professional grades or just experience that will do it for whatever price. I hired somebody to do some carpeting in my house and some painting in my house. The guy that did the painting was not the fastest or the best painter, and he wanted
probably not somebody you should recommend. That paint job was not that good, but
he wanted like $130 an hour or something. And the guy that did the carpeting wanted like, I think, like $50 an hour. The guy that did the carpeting turned out to be a better carpenter all around and a better painter all around. So,
go figure.
Yeah, but point is that I hired these guys for, I don't know, 6-7 hours each on a Saturday and a Sunday, and I just paid TaskRabbit. Now TaskRabbit takes a portion of it, and they get a portion of it as well. But moving forward, I'll just be paying the guy who did the carpeting to do more work.
But Justin, can I just say, my man, can I just say that the point that I was trying to make before about like Elon or Jeff Bezos was not so much that like that sounds great and all, and what's my connecting point. It was just that I could see these billionaires stepping in and making a better society, and that them using that as a wedge to kind of create where these companies, not just these two exclusively, but these two companies can sort of kind of galvanize the rest of the economy and even grow them twice as large as they already are. And yeah, I think these major companies that are already thriving in the United States and around the world, I think their next move is to kind of inspire society a little bit. And they already are. Flying to space, they're doing more than NASA has in the past fucking 30 years. That's fucking awesome. But they're inspiring people in a way that I think could rejuvenate the economy and get a lot of people involved in working with these companies and kind of making them even bigger than they already are, which is a little dystopian in the 1984 mentality, but I could maybe see something like that happening. Does that make any sense? I mean,
yeah. Well, I think,
and
when I say history is not going to exactly repeat itself, this is what I mean. I don't think we're going to see the future looking anything like we could have imagined. If we're factoring what we're imagining on the past, right? So it's a weird thing to predict. I think inflation is going to continue to take off, and I think these higher interest rates are going to actually have a hardcore negative impact. Now, they will certainly reel in inflation, but I think it's not going, high interest rates are not going to be helping out anybody who wants to be buying a house at any point in the future. We have a huge number of cash buyers already. The cash buyers have the money. The people I'm concerned about are the middle class and the lower middle class that can be moving upwards personally, financially. and I don't think any of this is helping them. Right? The gig economy, I don't think it's helping them because those jobs disappear very quickly. So you might be living middle class right now, but if you're driving Uber and some new law gets passed or the gas prices go up, now you're no longer making the money that you were making, and you're affected because it's a wispy job anybody can get. It goes away very quickly. Right now, I mean, the counter argument is you have this. You worked at a firm for 15 years, and then you just get wiped out because they're doing massive layoffs.
Well, that was 2008, and it is now. But you're right, though, Justin. It's and not to. I don't want to end on a shitty note. Fuck, we're really getting depressing here. So on a positive note, though, I do think that the future of our economy looks really great. I actually think that there's so much innovation and technology happening that I actually could see us being able to innovate our way out of this. And I think that what potentially could be the next move would be more of a climate change,
environmentalist approach.
Yeah, and
I
think
that note, we got to go, Adam. We hit the music. Okay. So, thank you for joining Adam Citiban, Raj Khaleb in the background. Thank you guys for joining us. I know the music is loud. We'll see you guys next time. Adios, everyone.
All right, you made it this far. This is the other end. Thank you for joining. We'd love to see you again. It really helps this podcast if you like, follow, comment, or interact anyway. And if you made it this far, we would really, really appreciate it. So thank you. We will see you next time, and looking forward to it.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.